Welcome to the Clinical Podcast Series brought to you by the American Academy of Optometry Foundation and the Public Health Channel. Today's topic, presbyopia in women. Today's host and topical editor is Ruth Hyatt, and today's topical expert is Sandra Wang-Harris. Now on with the show.
Hi, I'm Ruth Hyatt, a fellow and clinical diplomate of the Academy. This is the Clinical Podcast Series. Our episode will explore presbyopia in women. Our topical expert is Sandra Wang-Harris, a fellow of the Academy. Hey, Sandra, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, I do not fit a typical clinical fellow. I work in academia as well as in the field. I'm an independent contractor right now, serving in the country of Kazakhstan, in the city of Almaty, the southeastern portion of Kazakhstan, which is located in Central Asia. I work in social and international development, specifically with nonprofits, and I'm also a full-time faculty member of the College of Micronesia on the Federated States of Micronesia in the Public Health Training Program.
All right, well, thank you for sharing that. So let's have a look at our paper. So short tear breakup time could exacerbate the progression of presbyopia in women was published in 2022 by Ayaki and Nagishi. So they studied 1,400 participants with a mean age of 50.1 and found that women with short tear breakup time reached a near add power of +3 significantly faster than those with a normal tear breakup time. So they suggested that in women, presbyopia is exacerbated by a shorter tear breakup time. So I'll start off by asking, presbyopia impacts billions in our world, and billions of people. And with our digitized society and, an increase in people using phones and literacy, why should we, care about presbyopia?
Yeah, this is a general question that's very good for all of us clinical eye care providers, as we see presbyopia issues daily in our practices and on the field. In my field of work, I would suggest that presbyopia will never go away. I know that we, in the last year or two, there's a lot of new and novel treatments for presbyopia, but it is something that will never go away as long as humans age, at least not in my lifetime or your lifetime, I would surmise. So it's extremely important because so much of our work is done at a near distance, if not on screens, but also if not digital, but also just in regular work. So in many developing countries and countries that may not be as digitized as we are in the US or here in Almaty, for example, we really know that women are the backbone of all countries and villages. They do so much work, whether it be sewing or cooking, even as something as simple as pulling out the grains and the pebbles and rocks from rice, from millet, from barley. They need to be able to see these small things, and they cannot once their vision is compromised at near. And now we're seeing more and more literacy throughout the world, which is good because it's one of our Millennium Goals with the World Health Organization. And we're very happy to see that literacy is increasing throughout the world. And women are learning to read. Traditionally, in many countries throughout the world, women have not always been the first to be illiterate, as many women are kept from schools, but we're seeing a lot of gender equality, be it not as fast in some countries in the Middle East and in Central Asia that we would like to see. We are seeing a lot of literacy, from anywhere from 10% to 20% literacy in women. And it's good to see that, but along comes the issue of presbyopia. So in my opinion, presbyopia will never go away, and it will always be the bread and butter of our clinical practices.
What factors contribute to presbyopia progression?
Well, one of the issues with this particular of this study is that is looking at what kind of factors that the tear breakup time would do as far as affecting the presbyopia. But in my mind, we know the known factors, that time-tested true factors of presbyopia would be things like pupil diameter, aberrations in light, anatomical factors like our anterior chamber depth, lens thickness, for example, which we know definitely changes with age progression, lens capsule changes, which changes the curvature. We all remember that from optometry school, calculating curvature of every surface that we can imagine. Axial length, which also is absolutely necessary in calculating of refractive error. So these structural changes we know makes a definite difference in the presbyopia factors. So the issue with this article is what else may contribute to presbyopia progression.
So the authors found a difference in males and females. So they found that a short tear breakup time in females got them to a endpoint of +3 ad faster than males. So why do you think there's a difference between males and females?
Well, I thought that it was interesting that the women definitely showed a quicker progression to presbyopia, even though they both had short breakup times. Something to note, however, is that women had more profound breakup times measured than men did. So that might be the key to why women showed a quicker progression to the +3 versus the men. That other than that, there was no significant difference, though, when you looked at the plots that they showed in this study. There was no significance between women and men with a normal tear breakup time regarding getting to the +3 ad.
Were there any study limitations that you identified?
So one of the interesting things about this study is the actual title. It's named Short Tear Breakup Time Could Exacerbate the Progression of Presbyopia in Women. So we want to note that the choice of the words exacerbate the progression of presbyopia is a bit misleading, because I thought, how could something that is so changeable or variant like tear breakup time actually make a difference in an anatomical progression of presbyopia? Because those of us who remember in school, we were taught all the anatomical changes that happen to the human eye with age, and we know presbyopia is part of this. And then all of a sudden we're thinking of tear breakup time, which yes, it is definitely changes with age, but it is such a variant type of thing that can be changed with medications and therapies and behavioral changes such as smoking and how we take care of our eyes, that how could that actually change the quote unquote progression of presbyopia? So I had an issue of that title from the first off, just because tear breakup time is such a variable factor. But I really like the way the article at the very end talked about their limitations, specifically that there could be other possible factors that contribute to presbyopia progression. And my suggestion is that when they study presbyopia in general, they used a machine to try to reduce the subjective quality of the answers of the patients. But as we all know, that there is a circle of least confusion, or the depth of field that we all know in clinical practice. So how objective can the machine be in a subjective reading is one of my questions or limitations, number one. And the other question is, if it really is tear film instability and refractive aberration is the issue causing the progression, quote unquote, progression of presbyopia, then if we were to treat this instability with no treatments or do a controlled study of a treatment, of adding a treatment arm to it, would it change this quote unquote progression of presbyopia? And if it did change the progression of presbyopia, then we would know yes or not if it really is breakup time or tear film instability. Otherwise, this kind of a study only just opens up a can of worms or more questions. Although it does give a lot of food for thought, and it's such a relevant topic throughout the world, not just in the United States, but all over the world, I suggest that we do work on a treatment arm and treat this tear breakup film in tear breakup time and compare the two issues between females and males.
Yes, I think you nailed it. It's food for thought. It's definitely interesting and provokes a lot of questions, but I would have liked to see also if they treated these subjects and then compared what their final ad was, how that would change or not change. So with that in mind, what are your closing thoughts about applying any of this to clinical practice?
Regarding clinical practice, we need to keep in mind that presbyopia still is a subjective reading. Yes, we do have objective means of measuring it, and we do have our working distance. And by the way, the study investigators did a really good job. This is a Japanese study. They did a very good job in controlling the factors that they can control. There was not a lot of error as far as the error of controlling different extraneous factors. So they really try to keep things as controlled as possible. I do think that they did a good job in that case. However, as far as clinical practice, I would just keep in mind that it is a subjective reading, and we really just need to look at the working distance of the patients. Women tend to work at closer distances, and also they work in different fields. So if they work in the factory where there's a lot of dry air, climate makes a huge difference. Tropical countries versus very dry desert-like conditions make a huge difference, and we need to take that into consideration. If you work in low vision, you understand how varied that can be, but keeping that in mind, that if you see a bad tear film or a tear breakup time that is less than average, that there's a lot of factors that need to be assessed in their refractive error and in presbyopia and ad in general.
All right, Sandra. Well, once again, I thank you for your insight, and I wanted to thank everyone for listening to this episode of the Clinical Podcast Series.
Thank you. Thank you so much.